Welcome back, Dolph fans. Today we're going to have maybe an overreaction or maybe just the reality of the situation. A couple things we got to go over. Not really 100% sure on the Storm Duck thing, but I'm hearing that James Daniels is like a couple weeks. So, I mean, hopefully we didn't lose him. It's pectoral, but it says he's going to miss a few weeks. So, doesn't look season ending, which is, the one bright spot that I think we can take from all of this. But Storm Duck, I don't think, is going to be back for a while. Kind of sucks, but I mean, yeah, it is what it is. There's something that I want to talk about real quick with Xavier Howard, actually, because he said something, and it's kind of now. Of course, this is not like the whole team played like garbage. It's not just on Tua, but there's something funny that Xavier Howard said basically, and I'll tell you what, pretty much the quote right now, and it really kind of indicts Tua in what he is as a quarterback and what his max ceiling is. So basically, he says, we knew he gets the ball out pretty quick, and once we take away his first read, I feel like it's panic mode after that, and it showed yesterday. That's what Xavier Howard says with Tua Tagovailoa. One of the things that I wanted to really go over, and I think I overreact to, which we'll get into more later in the video, but I want to talk about Tua a little bit. And the reality of the situation is, I was starting to see that these plays kind of look very similar. They're almost the same every single play. Of course, that has a lot to do with Mike McDaniel, and I think he sucks as a coach too. But there's something that's kind of reoccurring over and over again, where you keep seeing these middle of the field interceptions now, where they used to be, big gains. It's just really overthrows, and they're clogging the middle. And what I'm starting to notice with Tua, and this is why I'm really losing faith in this dude as a quarterback, is that you're barely seeing any outside the numbers type of throws. Like, I'm not seeing a lot of, throws down the sideline, which, again, it's something that I tried to defend for a very long time, but that probably has to do with arm strength. He throws over the middle of the field because it's much easier to throw that ball than it is to throw to the outside of the field. And what Xavier Howard was saying right now is that clearly when you take away his first read, he has a very hard time trying to find his second read. And this was apparent when he threw the interception to Tyreek Hill, because I can guarantee you Jalen Waddle's open on some of these plays, but he doesn't want to get off his first read. And there's a reason for that, because he can't throw the ball that far. And I know I'm trying to not be too insulting, but again, I'm starting to allow the reality of the situation to sink in, is that he just doesn't have the arm strength to go onto a second read and launch the ball to another side of the field. And this is why he tends to struggle. And of course, the offensive line was hot garbage, but I think at this point we've reached the ceiling with Tua. And I think what's happening more and more is, instead of getting better and better as an offense and as a quarterback, people are just more and more realizing what they need to do in order to shut Tua down. And once they do that, he has no answers at all. And this is when he starts taking off and running and typically getting injured. There's a big flaw with him. And I think, again, it's arm strength. I think that's been the biggest flaw of all time. And the problem is that I mean, personally, I don't know what happened, because when he first started as a quarterback, it seemed like he would throw an interception and he would come back and make a good play after that. And as the years have kind of progressed, it seems kind of the opposite as he's progressed as a quarterback, is that he seems to start panicking right when he throws an interception, and he starts like doing too much, and he tends to have, Omar Kelly asked this question and he got angry, but it's kind of the reality of the situation is he never just has like one turnover. It's like typically when he has a turnover and he's not playing perfect, he starts turning the ball over a lot, where even the fumble, when you take a look at the fumble, it was such a stupid fumble to have, because instead of just going down, again, he's in panic mode. Like he doesn't know what to do. Everything's super fast and he can't see everything right. He's trying to do like too much, and he just had the ball out like for no reason in his left hand, just hanging out there like there's not defensive linemen trying to tackle you, and that they're not taught to just punch at the ball. Like, it's just kind of air apparent now that you're starting to see a lot of the flaws coming out of Tua, and that people are starting to game plan for him, and that I truly don't see how it can get any better, because we talked about all this, going and watching the tape, going and doing this, going and doing that. But there's a certain point at every person's career and life and whatever it is where you kind of need a little bit of talent. You need to be able to do something about it, I mean, we could talk for days on end about being a great studier of the game, and maybe Tua will be a very good coach someday, but the reality of the situation right now is that people are starting to game plan against him, and he doesn't know how to stop it. The whole team doesn't know how to stop it at this point, because again, the offensive line was trash, but if I could be 100% real with you, he had a little bit of time. It's not like he had like 1 second to get the ball out. There were some plays where he had like 2-3 seconds, and that's kind of really what you're going to get in the NFL. Now, of course, Daniel Jones had all the time in the world, but you had some time, and it just seemed like he was just staring down receivers, and he wasn't moving to another read. And I don't know. I also think that the game plan that they have for him, this might be a Mike McDaniel thing. Now, I don't know, with the arm strength and, throwing outside the numbers, I'm not 100% sure if this is a problem or not, but I'm just speculating that I tend to see a lot of throws that are just over the middle of the field, and to me, it just kind of signifies that you don't trust your arm to be able to throw to outside the numbers. Now, he did have a good throw to Tyreek Hill, later on in the game, but it just doesn't seem like the game plan is really evolved at all. And that might be an indictment on the quarterback that you have, that you can't do certain game plans. Now, granted, I also think Mike McDaniel is garbage as a coach, and I think that it just seemed like the offense has regressed significantly, and the regression only is because it just seems like you're running the same plays. Like, it just seems like you took the same playbook from last year and kind of just maybe moved a couple things, but they seem very similar. You do this thing, you do a couple motions. Tyreek Hill's supposed to be running over the middle of the field, but at this point, it's been 3 years, so people understand that that's exactly what you're going to do. So that's what it seems like, like even when you watch the interception, it just seemed like, Tyreek Hill was very well covered. It seems like that's the whole game plan. Like, in Mike McDaniel's eyes, he's just going to try and force the way that he wants to play football, and it doesn't work anymore. It's crazy. It's really crazy. I still can't get over like what just happened, because it's we can all sit there and have stupid hope and pretend like it might get better next game, but for the most part, there's a bright side to this. They either get it together or they fire everybody, which means we get to finally move on from this era of football, which low-key as a football fan is kind of exciting every time you do that, because you're going to get a new quarterback, you're going to get a new personality as a coach, and I think we're headed towards that very soon, because I think there's a lot of deficiencies into his game. If Xavier Howard is saying that, that means that Tua hasn't changed much. Like, Xavier Howard was here 2 years ago, pretty much. And if he's saying that, that means that Tua hasn't progressed really at all from the quarterback that he knew, and understands the same exact game plan that's going to be had for Tua every single game. It looks like we're moving towards that. So, overreaction, yeah, they could get it together next week, maybe. I don't know, but the way that it just looked like the players didn't even want to play. Like, that's really what it looked like. It looked like they were just like, oh, we knew this was going to happen. We were talking it all up the whole entire offseason, and we knew that this was going to happen. So screw it, and it just seemed like not just that they don't believe in the coach because the coach sucks, but what it seemed like is that you saw where your quarterback is, and you saw that he can't do it. Like you saw it again, that he can't do it. A good defense plays a good defensive scheme, and he's done. With Justin Fields, it's like you have the running ability, or, with Caleb Williams or any of those other guys, even if they stink it up, when it comes to passing, they have that running ability to do something about it. With Tua, it's like you don't have anything besides the passing. It's unfair, because he can't throw the ball far. He has to put everything he has into throwing the ball. And like I said, I think everybody on this channel knows I used to defend Tua like crazy, but I'm just starting to be realistic about the situation. I've seen this for 3 years, and it's not changing. He doesn't seem to be able to throw the ball far, and he typically has the same thing said about him over and over again. First read, doesn't get off his first read. If he does, he starts panicking and trying to find a player. And if Xavier Howard is saying that, it's got to be true. Like, you're not just going to say something like that. And he proved his point. So yeah, I think there's a huge flaw in this dude's game. It's not going to get better. He's a short quarterback who's fragile, who can't throw the ball very far and can't throw it with a lot of velocity, that can't get off of his first read. I mean, if you're really putting it together, and again, I was a fan. I was hoping that it would change and maybe he was, going to progress. But if Xavier Howard is saying this again, just like everybody says this means that Tua is not changing. Like, he is the same thing that we've been saying, or that people have been saying, and they're right about it. He's a first-read quarterback that has a, no offense, but a noodle arm that, doesn't get off his first read. And, when he does, he starts panicking and throwing interceptions. And just like Omar Kelly said, they come in bunches. All right. Now, we'll move on to the next part, which I think, the Tua thing, it's an overreaction maybe, and the team. But with this defense and this offense, with the two coaches that we have, what a disappointment that these guys were this last game, and let's be real with this. Anthony Weaver, unless he coaches out of his mind, there are certain things that we saw last year that we're seeing again, like even for Anthony Weaver. It's like people were talking about this top 10 defense that he put on the field, and I was like, all the offseason and most of the season, I was like, what are we talking about here? There's been plenty of games that I see where they can't stop anybody. And it showed again this year. This is coming down to really just an epitome of not understanding what football needs to be and what you need to put together for a team. Because this is the second year in a row with Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel and all them where they really just, everything we said has come to fruition. We talked about the cornerbacks ad nauseum, saying that the cornerbacks suck and that they're going to get toasted this year. Came to fruition. We said the pass rush was going to be good this year, and it was horrid. Like, they didn't do anything. Like, they legit just kind of didn't do crap. Like, I think Bradley Chubb got there once, but besides that, I mean, they were stonewalling these dudes. Like, now, what do you do here? Because you were relying on this pass rush to get to the quarterback for your corners to not get exposed. You can't even get to Daniel Jones, and you have crab corners. What do you do here at this point? Because now you have no secondary. You can't cover receivers, and the quarterback has all the time in the world. You have set yourself up to be completely just destroyed this season because you have no pass rush. These guys, they were, gimmicks and jokes, and, I kind of thought Chop would be something, and Chubb and all that. Maybe they need time to mold. I don't know. But, I mean, Chop's getting stonewalled. Jalen Phillips is, just like I've said in the offseason, Jalen Phillips, to me, has one move where he just runs as fast as he can, tries to get around the defender, and it typically only works when someone's pushing from the other side. That's it. To me, it just looks like Jalen Phillips has one move, and it's just the speed rush over and over again. And typically all quarterbacks do is they see that and they just step up, and the offensive line pushes Jalen Phillips out of the play. To me, that's what I see from Jalen Phillips. Bradley Chubb was the only one to get a sack. He didn't play great, but, I mean, the only one to kind of tip your hat off and be like, okay, well, at least you did something. They're in a very bad spot right now. And I'm going to give you my picks. Honestly, I think everybody's talking about it. But Louis Riddick and John Gruden, I would like to have that combination come over here. There might be some coaches later on, but for me right now, I think an established coach with a hard-nosed culture, like John Gruden's going to come bring the heat, and I know some people might be down and think that he can't do it, but John Gruden's going to bring the heat. He's going to change the culture of this franchise. He's going to make them a tough team. And Louis Riddick is a very intelligent individual. He's someone that I would want. That's who I want to take over at this point, because I don't. The reality is you can't solve this. And if they prove me wrong, fantastic. I have $350 tickets to watch them play the Bengals. I hope they prove me wrong, so I'm not watching a complete dumpster fire by week 15. But I don't see how you fix this, because you got no pass rush and you got no corners. You got a okay. I mean, Jonah didn't look great. Austin didn't look great. Patrick Paul looked okay, and obviously Aaron Brewer looked fine. But you got no offensive line. You got a small quarterback with a noodle arm that can't get off of his first read, and then you got all 5'10" receivers. How do you fix that with an incompetent coach at the helm? You don't fix that. The hope can only go so far. At a certain point, you got to be real with yourselves. And anybody in the comments, I'll look through my last video. Anybody in the comments, you got to be real with yourself. Like, you can't fix that. You put together a dumpster fire, and it's coming to fruition right now. And let's be real, as we always are. If you're a Dolphins fan out there, we've seen this before. Like, we've seen this exact scenario. Coach usually, he got one more year. Mike McDaniel got one more year than they normally do. But it's 3 years, dumpster fire at the third year, they get fired. That's usually how it goes with these coaches, because we always seem to get the wrong one. And like I said, the reality of the situation is that it's unfixable. You've created a defense that can't generate pass rush and can't cover anybody. You create an offense that can't guard against defensive linemen and has receivers that can't get you out of any sort of spot. With a coach that can't call plays right. There's nothing you can do. This is it. This is what we have to watch. And if some miraculous thing happens and they end up turning it around, praise God. But I'm real of the situation. It's going to be a dumpster fire until we fire everybody. And we'll start talking about it maybe in the middle of the season where, we start tanking for Mateer or trying to get the guy from Texas A&M or Carson Beck maybe in the later round, because I think Carson Beck looks great. You get one of these quarterbacks, you get a 6'2" minimum wide receiver in that draft. You trade away Tyreek Hill for some draft picks. You keep Jalen Waddle, he'll be the number 2. And you get a minimum 6'2" wide receiver in that draft. Like, point blank period. You hire John Gruden and Louis Riddick or somebody that has experience as a GM and a head coach. I don't want to do this crap anymore. We're getting some coordinator because it seems to go the same way every single time. You hire John Gruden, you get Louis Riddick, you change the fundamentals of this team. You trade Tua, you trade Tyreek, trade Bradley Chubb or Jalen Phillips or both. Stack up draft picks. Get John Mateer. I personally like John Mateer or Carson Beck or I can't remember the guy from. Tell me in the comments down below. Texas A&M. Get one of those guys. You get a 6'2", 6'3" wide receiver to go along with Waddle, and we move on from this wretched regime that we've had. Because again, I think the worst part about this regime is they've given us the most hope in the beginning, where we thought we found something, and we didn't. It's the same crap that it always is. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to be doing a film study. I think I'm going to do part of it here and then the entire thing on the membership. So if you want to get the full breakdown, go join that membership. And as always, guys, praise God, love God. He's great all the time. Fins up. Laughable, but fins up. Peace.